Simmons is in her 8th year at Kentucky as the head strength and conditioning coach for the Olympic sports. She works directly with men's and women's swimming, women's basketball, volleyball, and softball. The other sports that are covered by her staff are men's and women's soccer, diving, cheerleading, men's and women's tennis, and track and field. Prior to Kentucky, Tracey Simmons spent 4 years at UCLA, where she served as the associate head strength coach responsible for training women's volleyball, women's soccer, men's and women's water polo, women's swimming, women's basketball, and softball. A native of Huntsville, Ohio, Tracey Simmons began her career in strength and conditioning as a graduate assistant at Ohio University, where she earned both her bachelor's and master's degrees. She was also a 4-year letter winner with the OU volleyball team, where she played the opposite hitter position from 1993 to 1996. She is certified by the CSCCa and the NSCA. Stephanie Tracey Simmons. And on the baseball side of the world, we have Robert Basil. Robert is the Director of Strength and Conditioning at St. John's University. His primary responsibility is to oversee the strength and conditioning program for all varsity sports except basketball. He has served in this capacity since May 2001 and has been part of the St. John's Athletic Department since August 1996. Rob works closely with the baseball team and has helped in developing a nationally recognized program. He has also done research in the area of baseball performance testing. In addition to his responsibilities as strength and conditioning coach, Rob is an adjunct professor in the College of Professional Studies Sports Management Department. Rob earned his bachelor's degree from St. John's University in 1987 and his master's degree from Adelphi University in 2006. He's certified by the CSCCa and the NSCA and a USAW sports performance coach. He's also is a certified instructor in the lay responder first aid and CPR AED by the American Red Cross of Greater New York, Robert Basil. It's all yours.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thanks for coming. I know it's the last of the day and everybody's kind of tired and you have a lot of choices, and I know Rob, you and I appreciate all the people that are out there. So we're going to get right into it. We have a lot of similar slides, but some different things as we get going. We're going to push through the science part of it and then kind of get to some video and some testing that Rob does, and just try to leave as much time for questions and some practical application for you all. So that way you guys can kind of get what you want out of this presentation. The first thing we're going to talk about, and this is no surprise, is if you look at the similarities between baseball and softball, it doesn't take a rocket science to know that as you're looking, rotational power is something that's similar on both sides. So, and it's pretty much prevalent throughout the entire sport and everything that they do. That includes hitting and throwing, and then obviously pitching, because it's all in the transverse plane of motion. There's a positive relationship with the throwing velocity, bat speed, and batted ball velocity as you increase your power. And we all know that power is the product of strength and speed. So in order to get those things better, you want to try to emulate those things in your training. And I've got a video later that will hopefully show you some of the components that I use when I do these things. When you look at how you develop your rotational power, it all stems from the ground. So you're using your from your feet to your legs to your torso or your trunk, then to your arms, and then to your wrist. When you bat, when you throw, very similar to a power clean, very similar to a standing med ball throw. So those are all things that you just kind of want to be thinking about in terms of your programming and just as you're setting everything up. Some fun facts that I learned as I was kind of going through the science. I thought it was interesting. You always see the kids on deck with a little donut on their back to get themselves ready to go. That actually deters their performance, because if you're on deck and you're using anything that's plus or minus 12% of the regular bat you're going to use, it's actually going to mess up your mechanics prior to getting into the batter's box. So I thought that was an interesting fun fact, something that I didn't really know for myself. So that's kind of a myth. So you know, take that for what you want and how you want to use that, but maybe something that your kids don't know. And one other fun fact that I thought as I was going through this and looking at the rotational power, by increasing my rotational power, you're increasing your bat speed, and that does a lot of things for the batter, because while I'm in the batter's box, that gives me increased time to decide which pitch I want to hit. It might be just a tenth of a second, but that's a lot of time when you're in the box. So it will increase my decision time by increasing my rotational power and my bat speed. It will decrease my swing time, provided that my mechanics stay the same. And then the last thing, it will increase the batted ball velocity off the bat.
Okay, Tom House, who works with many top major league pitchers and I guess is considered one of the top pitching coaches in the country, attributes throwing velocity, all right? And 80% of throwing velocity for a pitcher is derived from rotational momentum. So, I don't know the science behind it, what he claims, but I mean, that's a significant amount as far as throwing velocity goes. Batted ball velocity, obviously bat speed, as Tracey mentioned, Coach Tracey mentioned, that that's going to be significant as far as your performance as a hitter. The faster you can swing the bat, the faster the ball off the bat, the batted ball velocity is going to be. And that's very important, because the harder you can hit the ball, the further it's going to go, the better chance of you as a hitter being successful. My research was, as a strength coach, we do a lot of testing, and we want to see increases in strength and power and speed. And I always wondered, well, aside from telling us a player is getting faster, what does it tell the coach? Can we predict a baseball player's success on the field? Can we test, say, a 60-yard sprint and then predict whether that guy is going to steal X number of bases in a season, will be a good base stealer? And my research, unfortunately, didn't show that. Didn't show a direct correlation between, say, strength improvements and performance on the field. But what it did show was improvements in batted ball velocity and bat velocity, which is putting that player in a better position to be successful. Whether he is or not, so many external factors in any sport, specifically baseball, that's going to determine whether a guy's going to bat 360 or hit 20 home runs or steal X amount of bases. But a guy who gets stronger, a guy who's leaner, a guy who hits the ball harder, who swings the bat faster and then hits the ball harder, is going to put himself in a position to be more successful than not. One research study that I did find was by Frank Spaniel, and he did show a moderate positive relationship between batted ball velocity and batting average, and a high positive relationship between batted ball velocity and slugging percentage. I haven't seen any other studies like that for baseball or any other sport. So it's something that I'm really interested in as a strength coach, because I want to give our coaches something that they can go home with it and get something out of it, other than one of their players is stronger. And batted ball velocity, you should always see a higher batted ball velocity than bat velocity. If you do not, all right, in your player, then there's some sort of break in the kinetic chain. All right, usually it's the hands. All right, so if we test a batter and his batted ball velocity is lower than his bat speed, we're going to look at some factors, maybe hitting mechanics, but specifically in his wrist, maybe he's got a weak grip, and we want to work on improving that. Okay.
On the next similar